Hi, my name is Rembrandt Flores. I'm the founder of 8 Commas. We are a Web3 marketing consultancy. We work with NFTs, crypto, blockchain, and try to achieve cultural relevance for our companies. And that's through traditional communications, IRL events, and entertainment marketing. And as you guys know, we're on a panel of the future of NFTs, next generation possibilities and opportunities. And I have an illustrious panel of guests to my left, and I'm going to have them all introduce themselves, starting with Elf.
Hello, I am Elf J. Troll, co-founder of an NFT project called Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult.
Forgotten Runes.
Yeah, it's a fantasy-based NFT project full of wizards and warriors and magical beasts. It's got a focus on storytelling and just creative content.
Amazing. Thank you. Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Marsilio, CEO and co-founder of NFTs. We're a platform for launching and managing interactive NFT programs, probably most famously partnered with Warner Brothers for The Matrix, and just recently announced a big project for Game of Thrones.
No one's heard of Game of Thrones here, right? Okay, that's what I thought. Lauren?
Hi, my name is Lauren Halstead. I head up business development at Chainlink Labs for sports, media, and entertainment. Since I've been at Chainlink, we've really been working on pushing forward the dynamic NFT movement, which is putting real-time data on chain to have the NFTs update. Some of the projects I've worked on is the National Basketball Association's The Association, LaMelo Ball NFT, among many others. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here bright and early.
GM.
No coffee for me. I don't think you guys had coffee yet either.
There's a little left in here.
Let's start with where we're at first in the NFT market. We're currently, keep hearing it again and again, we're in the bear market. I talked about this 3 months ago on another stage in New York, and now 3 months later, we're still here. Maybe now an extreme bear, or a hibernating bear, or the post-FTX bear. So when I talked in September, it was about building, because that's what you're supposed to do in this market. And now we're continuing to build, correct? And so how are each of you doing that currently, knowing that, okay, we're in a bear, we're going to continue being this bear, maybe we'll be this bear for another year, 2 years, I don't know. No one knows. So let's just go down the line and tell everyone what you guys are doing while we wait this out.
Yeah, so at Forgotten Runes, we have a big focus on sort of the more entertainment component of NFTs. Right now, we have got a 10-issue comic book series in production. We've actually already printed one of them, physically printed. We've got a large MMO video game that's been in production for about a year now. We've got actually a TV show in production with a very illustrious writer named Derek Kolstad. This is the guy who created the John Wick franchise. And on the sort of more token side, we're currently developing all 10,000 of our characters. We're making 3D models of all of them, which will be deployed into open 3D metaverses. Those are some of the bigger things that we're doing. So yeah, we're just trying to build for fun, because I think in the end, that's what's really going to engage audiences and bring new ones in.
Amazing. Jeff, what are you guys doing at NFTs?
Well, you know, first of all, I kind of think of bear as an investment term, and NFTs are about way more than speculative investment. What we saw over the last couple of years was a fervor that was, I think, if you step back for a moment, it was never really going to be sustainable. We'll probably see those kinds of waves come and go, but what we're seeing, and I don't think this has really been interrupted in a meaningful way, behind that speculative fervor is just a marching ahead of adoption of a brand new technology and a brand new internet. And I don't think that's entered a bear in any way. I think in some ways what we've seen is that's accelerated, even while speculative fervor has receded. Brands and creators, we work a lot with brands and creators, and we're trying to bring mainstream audiences in.
Right.
Mainstream audiences aren't going to enter this space, and mainstream brands aren't going to enter this space because of speculative fervor. They're going to enter because there are fun, cool things to do with NFTs. And maybe they'll even stop calling them NFTs, I don't know, but they're not going to really care as much about the technology. They're going to care more about the experience.
What would we call
Totally
NFTs
agree.
if they're not going to be NFTs? What do you think? Are they just going to be like, you know, just rewards or what we...
Yeah, it'll be whatever the thing is, but you know, for Nifty's, a lot of the NFTs that we do are collectibles.
Yeah.
And a lot of the collectibles are dynamic. A lot of them are interactive. That I think is the next wave, and that's where we're focused. Is NFTs that can be more than financial instruments, that can represent culture, represent community, and interact, you know, in a fun, gamified way.
Lauren, what are you guys doing over at Chainlink?
So over at Chainlink, we're just kind of to level up on what Jeff said is we're trying to find new creative ways to integrate our technology to make it fun and exciting for consumers. So what I do on a daily basis is I talk to large enterprise brands about the different Chainlink products and then different ideas either I have, the team has, they have about how to make it more interesting and fun. So, you know, how have we done it so far? We've done it a lot with sports data, having that real-time data change the actual NFT. So say you are going to be watching Messi play, say he scores a goal, all of a sudden that his NFT actually shows him kicking a goal in real time. And it makes it fun for you watching the game there because you just don't know what's going to happen and you don't know when your NFT is going to update. So that's something we're doing. So yeah, over at Chainlink, we're really just trying to educate enterprise brands about what we do, really going back to the basics about how we got into the space and why, and pushing that narrative to eventually, you know, mainstream this to the broader community and the rest of the world.
Amazing. My next question's for all of you. Which category do you believe NFTs are more aligned with? Is it tech, entertainment, or something else? Let's start with you, Al.
I think so far it's sort of been more aligned with tech, but I think ultimately NFTs should be more associated with entertainment. After all, this is intellectual property, I think, and the majority of these deal with characters. What do you do with characters? You tell stories with them, you play games with them, you use them as your digital avatar. You essentially try to bring them to life. That doesn't really speak tech to me. That speaks entertainment. That speaks TV shows, comics, games. I think that's where we need to head with the NFT space.
Jeff, I think I know your answer to this, but
yeah. Well, I'm an NFT maxi, I guess. I think that like in the future, all unique assets or items will be represented by NFTs. So on a long enough timeline,
yeah,
the answer is all of the above to your question.
I think,
but in the near term, I think I agree with Elf. I think that I guess the category for me would be culture. NFTs can represent culture in a variety of ways. They can represent entertainment and storytelling. They can represent community, and they can represent sports, and they can represent lots of things that come in the form of culture. But one of the things that is so special about, and you know, we talk about NFTs representing ownership, but what happens to ownership when it enters the internet? That's, I think, the question. And the answer, I think, is ownership becomes social. So that's why cultural objects are much more interesting in the NFT space than just about any other category.
Lauren.
Yes, I'm agreeing with all of you, all of the above. I do see in culture, in the music setting, and in community building, yeah, just in general for people who love the arts, I think it's going to be extremely prevalent. The tech aspect would be, you know, that if you imagine an NFT as a cookie, like an internet cookie, and that cookie's being passed around across the metaverse or across the internet, it's collecting different data points that then can be used to then go inform somebody what that person's interested in to broaden their community and show them other things they're interested in. And the way you flip this to make it interesting so it doesn't just seem like surveillance is that when we actually when everything switches and there's the paradigm shift and we own our own data, then you can use that data from the cookie NFT to then sell it back to an enterprise and be like, why am I interesting you can pay me to find out. And I think that's kind of the intersection of tech and community coming together.
Amazing. So my follow-up question for all you guys is, do you think now are NFTs poised to disrupt the entertainment industry?
Definitely.
If so, how?
Yeah.
Al?
Yeah, I mean, so what has been the model for the entertainment industry for the past, I don't know, like 100 years? It's been the IP has been owned by centralized, often corporate structures, and because of that, they reap all the rewards and revenue from leveraging this IP. I think NFTs are poised to sort of invert that model. That's at least what we're trying to do at Forgotten Runes, where all of our holders actually share ownership of these characters. And it turns out this is a really amazing incentive to create for those characters. And so if they own the character and they're creating for it, they should also share in any sort of revenue generated from that. You know, we sort of want to, we don't want to use this top-down model anymore. I think it's more of a horizontal model where we're just sort of both sharing creativity, revenue, and just make it more of a more intimate relationship between like the sort of corporate structure and the fan base.
Lauren, I want you to take.
Sure. Yeah, I think that it's massively going to disrupt the corporate entertainment industry. One of the blockers we have right now is just getting access to APIs for streaming data. I think that massive failures in the real world, unfortunately, will lead to them releasing more data to us to use. So if it's not just a grassroots new platform like Audius, I think that these companies are eventually going to have to, like, the mass public's going to realize how much they're making off of, these big companies are making off of you and the artists, and then once that clicks to a certain mass amount of people, then they will start complaining to corporate structures like Spotify and say, we want, like, that artist should deserve more, and that's really when things will change fundamentally. I think it'll take a while, but it will happen, and it is happening.
Yeah, this is probably a topic worthy of its own panel. It's a big one. And the answer is, of course, yes, but there, I think, are enormous challenges. A lot of the best storytellers and a lot of the best sort of the worlds that have been built up over decades exist in the more mainstream side of media. And a lot of the native NFT projects started not really with stories and worlds, but just with like characters, and offered CCO or other forms of IP rights, and basically said to the community, go tell your own stories. And there's this kind of divide, I think, between them. But there are projects that are emerging. I'm really interested in hearing about what ALPHA is doing. That sounds really fascinating. There are projects like this new one called Broadside. It started with a much more complete world and story, and is now developing it and inviting the community to participate. With Nifty's, we partnered with the George Romero, the godfather of horror, who kind of invented the modern zombie, to create Zombie Nation. And we're giving everyone who owns the NFT the rights in the IP of their NFT, but we're also going a step further, and we're giving them access to tools to create stories out of that IP and out of those NFTs. So there will be tools, I think, that come out that empower storytelling with this native IP.
Amazing. So now that we've sort of halfway through, let's get into the meat and potatoes of our talk. Let's talk about the future, right? What are the possibilities? What are the opportunities in the NFT space? Let's start with you, Lauren.
Yeah, I'd love to mention music NFTs. I know it is a buzzword, but I do think music NFTs are coming, and I think there's a lot of things you can do with the streaming data. I haven't yet really been able to work on a specific music NFT project in real time where a new artist is having their NFT change in accordance to what's happening with their streaming on a platform. And then this unlocks many, many things. So you start a fan club, and then all of a sudden you can give them swag, you can give them all these different benefits. to that NFT. So I think that's coming, and I think like it's been done well with certain NFT collectible communities now. But I think there's tons and tons of space for this to happen in music, and I think everybody in music wants it to happen too. So I am really excited about that in the future.
Yeah.
I think the last wave of NFTs, we were all talking about utility. It became this crazy buzzword, and everybody who launched a project, sold an NFT, had this laundry list of utility attached to it. And they sold their NFT, and they quickly discovered that delivering that utility was costly, it was time consuming, their organizations weren't set up to do it, and they had to do it forever. And it was really kind of scary. And that actually, I think, was one of the reasons that we've seen some brands sort of step back from NFTs. I've got to do this forever. So I think the next wave and the next opportunity, at least where Nifty's is most focused, is what we call utility at scale. Utility that is powered by technology and not powered by just money or people at organizations who have to constantly sort of churn the wheel. So, infrastructure that provides for utility at scale is coming, and I think that will be that will power the next wave of NFTs.
So Alf, I have a question before you start. So he just said forever. So
Forever?
are you prepared to do this
Build
forever? So this community you're responsible for forever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, is there a timeline? You go like, okay, we can do this for 10 years, guys. So we just want to let you know that this is going to expire in 2030 or whatever. So
It's really funny that you picked up on that, because immediately he said it, that I felt it in my soul.
I freaked out when he
yeah,
said that.
yeah.
I was like, okay.
No, it's a challenge, because you do have to constantly deliver new utility. But I think one thing we're doing at Forgotten Ruins is a lot of the tools we build are in service of empowering our token holders to build themselves.
Okay.
You see a platform like YouTube, where their major value proposition isn't necessarily what YouTube is building, it's what the content creators are building. That's what draws people in. And so I think as long as we can provide tools to empower our community to build, they can build faster and bigger and at scale so much more than we at Magic Machine can. And yeah, it's all about building the right incentive structures, the right tooling to incentivize them to do that. So specifically what we're doing is, like for the comic book, for example, it's such a great proof of concept for what we're trying to do. We've got a writer writing the stories, but his source material for these stories is the content that our token holders are creating. We've got a thing on our website called the Forgotten Runes Book of Lore. This is a digital tome that currently has over 4,000 entries. And all it is just people writing stories about their characters. Our comic book writer uses that as the source material to put into the physically printed comic. And our community loves seeing their characters in this book. And so, this is the model going forward. We're going to use this model for the show. We use it for any large media expression that we do. So I think that's ours.
Got it. So if it isn't forever, there must be a timeline. And if there's a timeline, is it passing the torch? Like, where do you think that I just want to get that answer here and now? So I understand all the NFTs I bought were thousands of NFTs that I bought already. What do I do with them? Do I keep them forever? Do I pass it on to my children? Do I pass it on to grandchildren? Like, I need to know.
Yeah, this will be a family heirloom that you
Right?
save forever, for sure. I don't have a solid timeline. I mean, I'll tell you this. The really tricky thing is when you're engaging with the legacy media industry, they move so much slower than the crypto industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're kind of bottlenecked by that pace. But that's all the more reason to hold forever.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll huddle.
So everyone knows the news is just consumed by FTX. And now that we're in this, what I described earlier as post-FTX world, I used to remember a couple months ago, people thought I was so smart getting to Web3. They're like, oh my God, you're such a futurist. How did you leave your Web 2 life and go into Web 3? You're so smart, you're making so much more money. And those people are now giving me condolences. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I heard what happened to FTX. Were they a client of yours? And I go, thank you so much for your condolences. I'm fine, thank you. But you know, all those people who were skittish are now nowhere to be found. They don't want to hear me talk about FTX. They don't want to hear me talk about NFTs. They don't want to hear me talk about crypto. So, but our industry needs mass adoption. So how are we as a community going to get them back? I know there's not a simple answer to this, but what are you three going to do to try to get people back into our side of the fence? Who wants to start?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's the same thing we've been saying. I think our solution, at least, is pivoting more into these traditional media expressions, because this is what the mainstream knows. This is what the general public understands. When you say the word crypto to them, unfortunately, a lot of them now are going to think scam. So I think we definitely have to lean away from the DEGEN financial speculation component and more into just straight up entertainment, straight up fun. When you deliver a comic book that looks great, or a cute toy, or a really engaging TV show, these are formats that the general public understands. This is what will bring them back, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah, I think the answer is a bit of a paradox.
Would you say a bit of what?
A paradox.
Paradox, yes.
Because for brand, and I'm specifically responding to your question about FTX and how that changes things. I think it makes, for brands and institutions, it makes trust all the more important. And for the end user, it makes trustlessness all the more important. Here's what I mean. The brands and institutions that we talk to, they're still very, very interested in Web3 and NFTs, but they're shaken by the news that they're reading coming out of FTX. They already had the suspicion that this was all a giant scam and fraud. Yeah. But they're interested. They understand also that NFTs can provide brand superpowers. So finding companies and partners that they can trust in a space where trust has been so damaged has become all the more important. For end users, especially those who really understand what went on with FTX, it's all the more important that we collectors not depend on centralized institutions not to screw us over, frankly. So trustlessness, the kind of core principle of blockchain, that the NFT that you own, you really hold. And some central entity, whether they exist tomorrow or not, your ownership doesn't depend on them. Trustlessness matters more for the end user. Right. Trust matters more for the institution after FTX.
I agree with you. Lauren.
Yeah, no, I think I'm agreeing with both of you. I think what people need right now more than ever is transparency into what's happening. So something like FTX seems very bright, shiny object, sponsoring all the biggest events all around the country, the arena right around the corner. So once you see that destroyed, you're like, what happened? Everybody wants to know what happened and how did they get to that point. And it's really about us educating them how that happened and then introducing them to products. And projects like Chainlink, one of our things we have is proof of reserve, so you can actually know that an asset is backed fully and that there's no debate. It's cryptographically proven. So I think right now we really just have to focus on teaching people the core principles. And for me, it's always just going back to the basics and explain to people why I got into crypto, explain them the principles of self-sovereignty and owning your own assets. That always gets people fired up. So just give people a reminder of why they came here and how they came here, and just go back to the basics and start from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, had to come forward with saying like, hey, we have this in our reserves. Hey, you're protected. Hey, we are not like that. company.
Emails
So
every couple hours.
it's really important now more than ever, as you mentioned. You have to communicate to the community, communicate to everyone outside of it, and everyone, just to try to help these people feel like you will be okay. Not everyone in this space is a bad actor, right? Oh, we're running out of time. So next, so I want you to each tell us what you see as the next big trend in NFTs. Who wants to start? Yeah.
Well, look, we're seeing a wave building, and I think it's going to surprise people in 2023 of brands who learned during the FOMO years of 2021 and 22 all about NFTs. And now many of those people who learned in some ways in some cases the hard way by investing in NFTs and losing their shirts, but learned to love the technology, are now championing the technology at their brands, and with their colleagues. And it reminds me in some ways of 2018. I was at the NBA, actually, who you partnered with.
I was in high school in 2018.
You were in high school.
You were in this space already?
I was at the NBA,
Yeah.
and many of us, myself included, had learned about blockchain during that wave of speculative fervor in 2016, 2017,
Yeah.
which crashed. And in 2018, we all thought, wow, this space is really scammy, right? You remember, just like we feel now, frankly. But we also many of us had been educated on the promise of the technology. And there weren't CEOs breathing down our neck asking us, what's your Web3 strategy? We were just, people at a brand who thought this technology was really great and could bring cool experiences to our customers and wanted to experiment with it. That, I think, is what's happening now at a much, much bigger scale. Now there are all these people who learned about NFTs during the frothy years and are now, frankly, under a lot less pressure, who are coming into the space to experiment and create real experiences. I think what will be different, in a good way, is rather than brands coming in and saying like, well, how do I quickly get as much money as possible because I suddenly have this item, in my budget that I have to hit. They're going to come in with experiences, and they're going to have a lot more NFTs that they give away for free. So the wave that we'll see are marketing experiences, marketing budgets coming into NFTs in a huge, huge way.
Lauren.
Yeah, I'll just play off that. I completely agree, and I'm always surprised actually on calls how many non-crypto natives who have just been learning themselves at these big corporations and tell me these ideas. I'm very excited that they've gone down the wormhole and really thought about these things through. So then the next wave will really be this stuff is dynamic. NFTs are happening, and I think what I learned in the past year is, as everything else, this just takes a long time to get the result you want. So when I'm on calls with these big brands, they want to do everything, like the sky's the limit, and they want to do it right now. So I think we're just going to have to set expectations a little bit, and then we're going to be rolling out some pretty advanced dynamic NFTs that will lead to user experiences and then highly, highly curated events that all the people who hold the NFTs actually want to go to and will be interesting and will be more similar to a Web 2 experience you're having right now, but Web 3, which will be even spicier.
I love that. Last but not least, Elf.
The term metaverse was hot a few months ago. I still see a lot of promise in that. I think the biggest challenge there is getting people to understand that the metaverse is not just a VR app created by Mark Zuckerberg. It's actually much bigger than that. These open worlds take a long time to build. I think a lot of people are wondering, like, why isn't the metaverse here yet? It takes a long time to build. And so I think that the feature of the metaverse that I'm most excited about, though, is the interoperability. If you're building a meta, open it up. I'm really fascinated by the idea of using your character tokens across multiple experiences. And so I see a lot of promise in that.
Amazing. I know we're out of time. I want to thank you guys all for listening to us. Thank you to our panelists, Lauren, Jeff, and Elf, for joining me on stage. And stay in NFT space, guys. We're here to stay, so you guys should all stay with us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.